Okay, welcome to Kojo's Math. This is a little different this time. So we're going to talk about circle graphs today. And it's a long story why I'm doing this tonight, and I'll tell you sometime. You can see I've got a background with a plastic bag, but let's see what we do. So circle graphs are based on circles, and they're 360 degrees. And that's the one thing that you have to remember. And after we do this, we're going to, at the end of these problems we do today, you're going to do, I think, 6 or 8 problems from the book after you watch this video. And this is just going to be where you're changing a percent to a degree or a degree into a percent. And then tomorrow, you're going to be working on converting, doing a little bit more practice with that, but also finding the percent or the number represented in a survey. But I'm going to cover that in the video today. So at the end of this section, by tomorrow, you should be able to change a percent into a degree into a percent. You should know the definition of a ray, a vertex, and an angle, and find the percent or the number on a survey, represented in a survey. So to start off, we're going to look at this. Find the angle measure represented by the percent. 32%. You have 3 different ways that you can do this problem. You could, 1, write 32% of 360 because the directions are going to say find the angle measure represented by the percent. Whenever it says the angle measure, you're talking about a circle graph. And you're always talking about 360 degrees. So you can't say, I don't know what you're talking about. Whenever it says angle measure, it's making a direct reference to a circle graph. And the angle measure comes from these 3 definitions. So you have a ray. You have 2 rays that starts with a dot with an arrow out. You have 2 rays that go like this, okay? I don't want to draw it right now. It's in the book. And the 2 rays where they join form the angle, the space between. And then you have the vertex is where the 2 rays meet at a point. And when they open up, if you think of an alligator's mouth, as it comes in, here's the alligator's mouth, right? At the point where it meets, on the head, that would be the vertex where they meet at the 2 points, at one point with the 2 rays, and it forms an angle when he opens his mouth. So you have 32% of 360 degrees. It's just going to say 32%. You're going to have to know you're multiplying 32% by 360. We've done this. The difference is we're finding degrees, so you have to write the degree sign at the end, 115.2 degrees. You have to write the decimals with all of these. Or you can do this, where you have 32%, you write it as a fraction, 32 over 100 times 360 over 1, and then you can get the fraction and divide and get 115.2. Or you can use the percent equation. The difference, it would be P over 100 equals D over 360. But if you use the percent equation or you use any of these methods, you simply can't just put 32% on your paper equals 115.2 degrees, or you're going to lose points for not showing work. This is how you show your work for the three methods. This is nothing new. This is all what we've had, the whole chapter. The only thing different is now we're finding degrees. Okay, let's see if I can change this. It's kind of tricky like the board. Now we will talk about a degree to a percent. It's the same thing, but you're not going to say 125 degrees of 360 because that's going to be more difficult because you're changing this to a percent. So what you can do is you can use the percent equation and still use D over 360 equals P over 100 fill in the parts. The 125 degrees always goes over the 360. And then notice when we finally do that, we do our work, we divide both sides by 360. That's 360, not 300. And now we're going to get P equals 34.72222%. This is a repeating decimal of 2. You have to round to the nearest tenth. You can't round to 34 and make that 35%. You have to round it to 34.7%. And you have to use the about sign. That's the one way you could change a degree into a percent. Or you can simply write it as a fraction. We learned how to change fractions to percents. 125 over 360, but you have to show your work. You're going to get 0.3477222, and you have to show me you're multiplying by 100 to get about 34.7%. All of this we've had all of this in these previous chapters. This is not. You're going to be given in tomorrow's assignment on Friday. I'm going to give you surveys where you have to find either the percent represented or you have to find the number of people represented. So I'll either give you the percent and say how many people does that represent, or I will give you the number of people and say what percent does that represent in the survey. You always first find the most important number, which is how many people were surveyed. 450 people were asked, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? So 25% like chocolate. How many people is that? You have two ways to do this again. The simplest way is to say 25% of 450. Go 0.25 times 450, and you get 112.5 people. Now you may say, oh, we'll round that up. But you can't, because you're talking about how many people liked it. 113 people did not like it. 112 people liked it. So whenever you're talking about surveys, you round down. So this would be 112 people, even though this is 0.5. You could do this, or you could use the percent equation. I don't care, as long as you show me your work. Down here it says, what if I ask 220 people liked vanilla? What percent is that? Well, I would probably use the percent equation, or you could simply write the fraction 220 over 450, divide, and then multiply by 100, and get about 48.9%. Notice I don't say 49%, I say 48.9%. You want to keep it at the nearest tenth. Now, after you watch this video, there's about 6 or 8 problems you have to do in the book that go and change. It's just asking you to change degrees to a percent or percent to degrees. And everything is based on what degree, what's the total degrees? That's right, 360 degrees. I hope you guys have a great night, and I will see you soon.